This episode of Dispatches from Planet Albany is brought to you with support by New York State United Teachers, which represents more than 600,000 educators and school-related professionals in New York. Dispatches is also supported by the public affairs firm O'Donnell & Associates. For more information, check out o'donnellsolutions.com.
This episode is also brought to you by Citizens for Affordable Rates. New York's car insurance costs are nearly double the national average, and state lawmakers must take action to make driving more affordable. Learn more at citizensforaffordablerate.com.
I want to lead, though, by saying I 100% agree with what Assemblyman Palmisano said about halt the death gamble and the change of the assault definition. And I'm going to say something else that's going to probably shock a lot of people in this room. I agree with Senator Salazar.
I've also declared war on potholes, so here's the first shot across the bow.
Well, as you know, with Planet Albany, there's always something that makes the planet turn.
And it's this amazing view of D.C., and Eddie Vedder comes out, and he goes, "You have a cigarette?" And I've never smoked in my life, but if I had, I wish that was the moment.
And this strategy takes us from potholes to knotholes.
I would like to say it was a pleasure, Mr. Kim. But I'm on the road.
I'm David Lombardo, and this is Dispatches from Planet Albany, a podcast about power and policy in New York State government. And on this episode, we're exploring a new AI-driven tool that attempts to judge the effectiveness of state lawmakers while also scoring the significance of their bills and their chance of passage. In its current state, the legislative tool, which you can find at smithmoses.com, is mostly a curiosity and definitely a fun discussion prompt given its needs for upgrades to how it assesses Planet Albany, such as a recalibration of scoring, how certain long-shot bills are processed, and giving credit to lawmakers for more than just their prime sponsorship of legislation. Despite these and other limitations, though, it really is an exciting website for anyone interested and immersed in the legislative process here in New York. So we wanted to check in with the founders, and they are Cuomo administration alum Matt Wing, who now runs his own political marketing firm, and Josh Mohrer, the former manager of Uber's New York operations and the founder of the AI note-taking platform Wave. So Matt is a familiar name to people in Planet Albany because of his time on the second floor, but Josh, who are you?
I'm Matt's friend.
Okay.
I met Matt when we worked at Uber about 10 years ago in the New York office. We did a bunch of work in the city, but then also in the state. And I stopped working at Uber in 2017 and have been up to some other things, but we've been friends throughout that time. And one area of fascination for me is AI. I'm an operations exec. I'm non-technical. By that I mean I run humans, not computers.
Okay.
But AI has allowed me to really change that and make software. And so in my day job, I make an app that lets you record audio and summarize it. And then we're doing something on the side that we thought you'd like to hear more about.
Yeah, and the side project and what it is we can dive into more in a second, but let's start with the why of it all. What motivated you to create what is, at least for now, a free tool that lets users, among other things, assess the effectiveness of lawmakers and dive into that AI word you used, analysis of bills, which includes its significance and chance of passage? Why are you doing this?
Well, I think Matt and I come at it from different sides. He loves government.
Okay.
And I don't love government.
He hates government.
Does that mean you hate government or the people in government?
No, not the people, but the concept of it. It feels like 7th grade social studies.
So you're more of an anarchy guy?
No. I'm just a citizen.
Okay.
And every campaign season, I hear a lot of things. And then after the election, I stop hearing about them. And I've always wondered, well, what actually happens between those elections? And
well, if you subscribe to a newspaper or listen to the Capitol Press Room, you can keep up with the government.
100%.
Okay.
Through a filter, though.
Sure.
And when we were at Uber, I joined them as a marketing and operations exec. And I didn't care much about government, but government cared about me because of what I was doing there. Mm-hmm. And so I got familiar with government on both the city and state level in that job, and so kind of took an interest to it. This was 2015. We were trying to get rideshare regulation passed here in Albany.
I remember I worked in the assembly during that time period.
It was exciting.
Yes.
It was the first time I was here. I actually haven't been up here since then. But I learned about, I knew basic things as an educated American about bills and how laws, I'm just a bill on the hill, etc.
Sure.
And I know a little more than that still, but I got my hands dirty with trying to get Uber regulated here in New York State and also operating it in New York City. And so, fast forward about a decade, New York State has a wonderful API, which is a way that computers can talk to each other, basically.
Sure.
To get every bill that's put out in real time, who the sponsors are, what the text is, its status as it goes through the process to become law. That's all available there. And Matt and I saw an opportunity to sort of ingest that and using AI, and I'll talk about that in a second, making it something that people like me can read every day and get a sense of what's going on here. One of the magic things that AI does in this sort of era over the last 3 years is it summarizes text really well. It takes a bunch of text and makes it a small amount of text. That's actually novel. Prior to 3 years ago, computers couldn't really do that. And so it really struck me right away when all this text started getting released, November of 22, that really summary is the amazing feature of AI. Language models can ingest text and shrink it down. And so I also knew, the sort of idea of nobody reads the bill. The bill's very long. It gets printed in the middle of the night. It's this big. And
Well, are you talking about more like budget bills or omnibus bills? Because a lot of bills are actually very short.
Totally. I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
But I think generally the concept of this session, there'll be 25,000 bills. Maybe some days we'll have 80 or 100. Some will be useful. Some won't be. Some will be celebrating Matt Wing on his retirement from FDNY, and some will be highly impactful, substantive bills that could change the way everybody lives. Mm-hmm. And so they sit right next to each other in the stream, but sort of pulling out the signal from the noise, I think, is the challenge there. As just a guy who doesn't want to get super deep in this, but wants to know the people that I send up to Albany, what they're up to. And so, it sort of struck us that AI could really help in summarizing and surfacing interesting things that are coming out of Albany for everybody.
I think we came at it from sort of two different perspectives, as Josh was alluding to. Josh has built this wonderful company, Wave AI, which does excellent transcription of audio, summarizing phone calls, live meetings when you're off of your phone, really simple and great. And as he said, he saw this opportunity largely because the legislature's API is open, which gives us the ability to plug in and summarize everything. And that's where we started from.
And there are other tools that scrape that data as well.
Absolutely.
For sure.
The thing that I came at it from was more not just how do you deal with the massive quantity. So right now, as of today, in this legislative session this year and last, 21,567 bills have been introduced. That's crazy. That's too many bills. I think we can all agree that we don't really need our legislators introducing that many. So how do we sort it so more people could understand what they're doing and why? How do we give other factors on top, like listing the potential stakeholders who will oppose or support a bill? And then in addition, the question I've wondered about my entire time in government and politics is, how do you judge if a politician is good at their job? Mm-hmm. Now, in the private sector, there's all kinds of very specific, what we call KPIs, key performance indicators, to say, okay, this person's meeting expectation of their job or not. But in politics, it's super vague. It's, do you want to have a beer with your representative? Do you like them personally? Do you agree with everything they say? I wanted to apply a sort of more objective criteria to just measure, okay, forget all that. Are they actually good at the thing they're technically being hired to do? Are they able to pass laws that have high impact on the people that they serve?
So you're framing that as an objective feature and that government can be judged not by vibes, as you tweeted. And I want to get into that, but let's stick with the why of this, because what you've laid out, it all sounds very altruistic. And maybe I'm too cynical, but when I see a tool that in part is marketed to lobbyists based on the wording on the website, I think of it as a money-making opportunity. So when are you guys going to start charging for the premium version of this?
It's marketing to lobbyists?
There is a reference to lobbyists and journalists, and so I saw the reference to lobbyists, and I thought, hey, lobbyists have money, so maybe we're looking to charge them for this.
No, I mean, Matt and I are good buds, and so I think we kind of relish the opportunity to work at the intersection of the things we do.
Mm-hmm.
I work in AI. I've developed this ability to make software without, I'm technical-ish. I'm a nerd. I do math, but I'd never been paid to write software before. AI has opened up a world for me where I can now, and everyone can, make software on a whim. And so part of it was like Matt and I finding an intersection of interest and like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we both are running our own operations that are how we make money, and so this is sort of like a side quest of just sort of, wouldn't that be fun? And I think once you start charging for something, it is an inherent limiter. It's going to see fewer eyeballs.
Okay.
This is sort of just it costs very little. We run the AI stuff. It's negligible, and I think maybe we're in it for the clout or for the links. We're in it for the SEO.
You wanted to get onto this podcast, obviously.
Exactly right.
We're in it for the attention.
So we're not going to have here's the premium features, here's the email alerts for an extra $100 a month or anything like that at some point?
I don't think so. I mean, if it took off in a way where the cost of generating the summaries became much higher, and so we were losing a ton of money, then we might be forced to do some kind of charging scheme to recoup what we've spent.
Mm-hmm.
But we never, in the why, we never started from a place of we want to make a bunch of money off this thing, despite whatever is on the website. It's true. Lobbyists are the people who would be interested in this, in addition to journalists and hopefully informed citizens.
But, I mean, isn't it the case that the legislature used to be a side gig too, right?
It's true. It wasn't part-time employment, but they did get paid.
And it's still listed as a part-time, job, but they argue it is full-time. Let's talk about the thing that I'm most intrigued by and something you referenced earlier, the likelihood of passage. Because if you could come up with a formula, if you could figure out a way to dump in all these different variables and pump out an answer like you're trying to do, that would be appealing to a lot of people, like you are identifying with lobbyists and journalists and even the general public. I'm very skeptical of this. I've read the positives that you factor in, the risk factors, but just recently, you highlighted a bill from Senator James Sanders about a pay raise for Albany lawmakers, noting it has a 25% chance. And as the former Senate Democratic counsel pointed out, that is a 0% chance of getting done. So how do you rectify what your, AI comes up with and what someone with experience around the block comes up with, which I would take to be up closer to reality prediction?
First let me give you the snarky answer.
Please.
Is that a probability isn't the same as an outcome.
Sure, it doesn't have a 1 in 4 chance, though. I mean...
Well, who's to say? 1 in 4 chance means it's probably not going to happen.
It means that if we run a scenario 4 times, isn't it supposed to happen once?
They're going to get raises someday.
Sure, but that's a way to hide behind a lot of things. The idea that, we're just saying it has a chance.
Yeah. I think another benefit of being free is you can be imperfect without feeling too bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
you get what you pay for.
Well, it's important to note a couple things.
Sure.
First, this is a work in progress that we're doing on the side.
Yes.
And so part of the reason we made it free, because we wanted lots of people to use it, is we want to get feedback from people. We are not putting it out there and saying this rating is perfect. This is a test. It's an experiment. And we want people to, like you and others, and please email us at notes@smithandmoses.com.
Please.
Your feedback and tell us where we're wrong, because we're going to work to improve it.
You guys have been doing that to date.
We've added new features.
We've gotten a few good feedbacks. I think we were confusing a senator and an assemblyman because they had the same last name.
Yep.
There's multiple Browns in the assembly.
My bad.
Yeah.
Now it's fixed. And we've
multiple
added
Ramoses.
Yeah.
Totally. We've added some features that have been suggested. I mean,
you can compare multiple lawmakers based on their effective rating by selecting them each. We obviously have our daily newsletter, which you can sign up for. But I think the way we came up with the passage rating, and the impact rating is a little easier. Passage, as you point out, this is a really tough nut to crack. But basically, we emailed and asked a bunch of Albany experts, lobbyists, lawyers, campaign staff, former Senate and Assembly staff.
Did mine get blocked by my spam email, Matt?
I should have emailed you. My bad.
Okay.
You should have been on the list.
We want to hear it now.
Yeah. Here you are.
I'm not going to be shy.
And I interviewed them and I asked them a ton of questions, both on impact and passage.
Do you want to name some names of who you talked to?
I haven't asked their permission if I can, so I
want to give us a hint. They can say what they rhymed with or something like that.
No, I'm gonna take.
Okay,
I'll take a pass. I mean, it's not that it's a state secret. It's just that I should have talked to them first. And
if
said,
you're a listener and you talk to Matt or Josh, let us know,
please. I recorded. What was interesting, using Josh's Wave AI, I recorded those conversations, and it was like a long list of questions. Again, impact a little easier to tell because you can pull from the legislative text certain factors, but passage very, very hard to tell. How much should you weight what committee it's assigned to? How much do you weight how senior the sponsor is and how many co-sponsors there are? How much do you weight the timing in session? And these experts all gave me their subjective or expert opinion. I then shipped those transcripts off to Josh. Josh just took the transcripts, dumped it into our IA, and boom, we started generating passage ratings.
In a perfect world, it would ingest news as well. Like if the governor got up and said, "There is zero chance I will ever sign this bill. It's never, ever, ever going to happen." That something like that would, in theory, impact the score downward. Mm-hmm. It doesn't at the moment. It's using more logic and internal reasoning than news.
But you do mention in the positives the idea of external influence. So is there a case to be made for just maybe picking a few news sites and scraping them for potential references? Although then the challenge is, I know I'm not writing bill numbers in my story, so how are you going to assign, talk of reforming Tier 6 to an actual bill that might be connected to that?
It's a challenge.
It's hard. You'd have to correlate mentions of the legislator themselves, which are usually included in articles, plus the sort of issue name or category. But it's hard. That's a harder part of the reason that's not live yet, as Josh is alluding to. It's harder to do. We're doing this in our free time, so we're doing our best. But like I said, we definitely welcome all feedback because it's a work in progress.
Some challenges need someone who simply won't quit. Modern advocacy brings tenacity, strategy, and unwavering follow-through to every client it serves. Learn more at modernadvocacyllc.com. What about the committee pathways? I noted that you don't factor in the Assembly Higher Education Committee, which is a committee where a lot of scope of practice bills go to die. And I think if a bill that has some sort of effect on licensing moves it out of that committee, it should be considered demonstrably beneficial towards its advancement. So aside from Codes Committee, which you guys are factoring in, Finance, Ways and Means, Rules, are you looking at any of those other committees prior to me mentioning this?
Not this example at all, but we will immediately after this interview start factoring that in.
Yeah, if I can have the recording of this interview, I'll just drop it in.
It'll be live by tomorrow.
We're limited somewhat by what's exposed in the API. Is that a committee that we just missed?
It could be.
Yeah.
I see it. I mean, it's a public committee, so we must have. Are you saying no bills are being referenced, or you're saying we're not putting into
I'm
the
saying
passage?
It wasn't listed in terms of hey, this is one of the ones that we're factoring in terms of the committee pathway and how that influences our.
So we didn't because we only factored in the committees that were highlighted as the really core ones to consider, but that's one we should have considered. But we do that implies we do have it listed. It's not we didn't totally miss it.
Yeah, all right.
It is fun to hear you say the core committees because everybody's always the very powerful Judiciary Committee chair or the powerful Health Committee chair, but in reality they're not all that powerful.
Not that we want anyone not to feel powerful, but part of the point of this is let's have an objective judgment on efficacy and ability to move bills through the legislature, and then also again their impact, because plenty of people pass a lot of bills into law, but at the end of the day, they're things like resolutions or one houses or things like that.
Well, you brought up the idea of efficacy of lawmakers, and you have worked inside government, so you know that a lot of things happen behind the scenes that demonstrate a person's efficacy, like killing a bill, for example, or maybe you're working on an issue that you care about as a co-sponsor, but you're not the prime sponsor for whatever reason, or you're doing things like constituent relations, or you're securing funding for your district. So how much stock, when it comes to the effectiveness of a lawmaker, should we put in being a prime sponsor of significant bills?
So right now, that's the only factor we're looking at, which is a fair criticism, because I think we should be factoring in vote participation.
And you can tell me if I have unfair criticisms, Matt. You can push back. I can take it.
I was a spokesperson for Andrew Cuomo, so I'll never hesitate to tell you you're
then
wrong.
Don't yell too loud too. Just let me know, and I'll turn the volume down first.
So I think factoring in votes, factoring in what you vote for, where it goes, harder on the co-sponsorship piece, but probably a way to have like a sort of soft thing in there. On the funding, right now there's not something connected to the Senate API that would tell us.
No, there isn't.
Where the funding. So if that was added, we'd love that, but that's harder to tell. District services, I guess, constituent services, that's real, unless, again, the legislature as a whole started publishing, I had this many constituent complaints,
right.
I closed this many, and it was an objective criteria, not just the member saying it. It'd be hard to tell. I will say that in my experience, local officials, city council members, are more likely to focus on constituent services necessarily than state representatives, because state representatives are often here in Albany, and I would say the core job description is passing bills in Albany, and that's a tremendous amount of power. State legislatures across the country pass way more bills than Washington, D.C., as you're seeing the federal government experience dramatic retrenchment, retreating from the responsibilities they've usually taken up. States like New York are sort of coming in and taking on more responsibility with less money. And so I think in that context, it's appropriate to start from a place of, if you're a prime sponsor of a bill and it has a dramatic impact and you get it passed, you deserve an objective amount of credit for doing that. And I do want to note, from my perspective, it's not about ideology or agreement, right? You might be really gifted at passing high impact bills that I think are terrible, but that's not what I'm trying to establish. We're not trying to tell people, you should vote for these people because of their score. We're trying to tell people this is a thing they're good at, which is applying, I hope, a level of rational, even if imperfect objectivity to a very vague and an increasingly divided and polarized process of judging politics, just to try to bring it back to a little bit of like putting aside likes or dislikes. What are these people doing and how good are they at doing it?
Josh, getting back to the technical side of things, are you scraping bill memorandums as part of this when you're factoring in what a bill does? Because you made the case that AI is getting very good at summarizing text, but I imagine that's only useful if you have useful objective text, and bill memos, including the justification, are written to be persuasive arguments, show really just one side of things. So how meaningful is that language if you are incorporating it into the significance in terms of the impact?
So we ingest sponsor memos into the system where they exist. The determination of the impact score is based solely right now on the bill text.
Okay.
We get a sort of change, like what's going to be added, what's going to be removed from law. And in the prompt that the AI reads, there's some of our thinking and the thinking of those that we've interviewed about this, about what is impact, what really matters. And I think we actually expose that on the site. We say what we do, like how it all works.
Under our methodology.
I couldn't get the word. So the sponsor memos.
He's a talking
guy. Word guy.
Yeah.
He's my word guy. The sponsor memos don't impact the score at the moment because, at least in the API, they don't appear with every bill. They might exist, but we don't have them all yet. So it's just using the text of the bill itself.
And what about a bill that might say repeal the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act? That could be a bill that simply says repeal this language. It's going to be one sentence, basically, effective now. Is the AI able to then look at that section of law that's being impacted and be like, oh, crap, this is the CLCPA. This is a fucking big deal, everybody. Put this on a 10 and let's move on with a 0% passage.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things about AI is how rapidly it's gotten better. Mm-hmm. So models come out. If you're not touching them every day, it just sounds like Windows 3.1, Windows 95, Windows XP. It doesn't sound like anything.
I miss Windows XP.
Me too. But if you're touching these things, it's been amazing. You come into work the next day, and it's like everyone you work with has gotten much smarter overnight from an upgrade. And so we're now dealing with models that are quite smart. They don't know everything, but they have a very good view of the world. They've ingested all the text, of the world, and so they would be. I would imagine, unless you can find an example otherwise, but they would do a solid job saying, even though it's only one line, removing this thing, it's going to have a pretty good sense of what that is.
It makes that connection.
Yes.
The impact is looking at, first and foremost, how many people are we talking about? So whether it's a repeal or a new law, it's going to specify some type of geo. Is this Plattsburgh? Is this New York City? Is this the entire state?
Sure.
Then it's going to pull from the bill text other factors that we take, either seriously or not so seriously. So, like Josh said, a resolution to celebrate my retirement from the FDNY. Well, come on, that's not that big a deal. But a bill that changes, for example, criminal law and says, okay, if you commit this crime, you're going to spend this much more in jail. Well, that's pretty serious because that's affecting all of our, civil rights. A bill that has a high fiscal impact, so it's going to cost a lot of money. That's pretty serious. A bill that introduces a new universal service, like, say, childcare, that's pretty serious. So all of that goes into the impact. And again, I think it's still a work in progress, but the reason we rolled it out on both the passage and the impact was we felt like maybe a 2 should be a 1, or maybe a 2 should be a 3, but it shouldn't be an 8. And we feel confident in that. And an 8 or a 10, maybe it should be a 7, but it's not that we got it wrong and it's a 2. Same with passage. Like, to your point, that Sanders bill, maybe it's a 1, or maybe it's a 0% chance of passing, but 25% says very unlikely, and that's pretty good.
Are you guys anticipating, come primary season or general election season, someone's going to have a little
Smith and
sticker?
Moses rating?
Yeah, they're going to be like, I'm a 9 or whatever. I'm super effective.
It would be a dream, man. That would be awesome. But I will say, as we get into that season and we think about who to vote for, I do check the website. Oh, what's this guy been up to in Albany? Oh, he's pretty good. Or, oh, he hasn't been doing very much.
It's also an easy way for you to see every bill that your state representative has introduced and where that bill is at. You can't get that anywhere else. You can't get that on their website. You can't,
But you can find their bills on the NY Assembly website.
You can, but I would argue that the summary, the sponsor memo is going to be harder for you to decipher than our summaries. It's not going to tell you, what stakeholders are impacted. It's not going to tell you, it might tell you where it is in the process, but you're going to have to look up bill by bill.
Sure.
You're not going to be able to just see writ large how they're doing. Also, if, let's say, there's 2 members of the Assembly who happen to be running for Congress, and you want to compare how good they are at passing bills, you can...
We'll call them Alex Schmorez and Micah Schmashler.
And honestly, when you do compare them, which we did,
they're both pretty good.
They're both pretty good.
Both good.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly.
Or let's say you're voting for mayor. You want to know, well, this guy's been in the Assembly. How's he been doing? It's good for that, too.
And that was an area where you guys did, I think, respond to some criticism, given that you didn't give the now mayor credit for bills that had been substituted as bills that
thank you
became
for
law.
that. Was that from you?
I imagine you heard from multiple people on that.
It was from you and one other person. You were the first.
We fixed that. That's live. The fix is out there. Should be good now. But that was a good one. Sorry about that.
And also, to be fair to our mayor, we're judging him from this current session where he was running for office and he probably wasn't spending a lot of time passing bills. And I think most people knew about his legislative record and they still voted for him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a brilliant guy. I think you're asked for votes, and a lot of the time you just don't have full information. Why wouldn't someone think, how does this guy make me feel, or what are the vibes, in the absence of any other information?
What about the budget of it all? Because sticking with the new mayor, his big legislative accomplishment while he was here was working with Senator Mike Gianaris to get a bus pilot program into the budget. Is there any way for you guys to give people credit?
We just got this feature suggestion. I am excited. This is a little more of a lift, but if the budget bill, which I understand is quite big,
and multiple ones,
and there are multiple
Article 7 and appropriation bills.
Someone suggested if you sponsor a bill that doesn't go anywhere, but the idea of it is adopted and ends up in the budget bill, you deserve something for that in our scoring. So
a little something for the effort.
A little something for the effort. Presumably, you've influenced the agenda. You've gotten this done, even if that's reality or not. Like, you started the conversation. It was enough. It was like a relevant thing, and so it ended up in the governor's bill. There should be something for that, and we're trying to figure out how to do that.
what about the Robert Moses of it all? I don't know if you guys are familiar, but he is not like super popular right now. There's some recriminations about his legacy, yet you guys are promoting him. How did that come to be, and any reservations about that? Is there a chance of a pivot?
Never read Power Broker. It's too long, so we don't know what you're talking about.
So maybe Josh is joking.
You have read it, as you're saying.
Again, it's what we were not trying to say someone's good or bad. We were trying to, give
effectiveness.
We were trying to give a name. Yeah, Robert Moses was very effective at a bunch of things. Some of them terrible. But one positive example was when he was Parks commissioner during LaGuardia's tenure. He built more parks in a single year than New York City's built since. And with less funding. I mean, he was prolific at getting things done. The name homage is specific, though. It's Governor Al Smith, who, when he first came to Albany as a freshman assembly member, he was a party hack from Tammany Hall, wasn't well educated, but was smart enough to know what he didn't know. So when he came up here, every night he would sit in his hotel room and read all the new bills by candlelight so that he could learn how Albany worked. And that's how he became a really knowledgeable legislator and later governor. And then as governor, he hired Moses, and he would call Moses up anytime a new bill came forward that he was worried about, and ask him, who's in favor of this, who's against it, what are the traps, how does this work, what do we have to look at? And Moses, just off, because he was a brilliant political operative, just off the top of his head, would have the answers. And so the reason I think it's an appropriate or fun name, even though it sounds a little bit like a law firm and is kind of boring and nerdy, is that it merges those two talents. It summarizes bills, and it gives you sort of political analysis and impact. And so the idea is we're bringing those talents of those two individuals back to life through this AI.
We just wanted a name that would confuse everybody. It could have been like NYS Bill AI site. That probably would have been more clear. But
no, it sounds like a law firm. But I whatever. I'm a nerd. I like it.
No, I appreciate the explanation, because before you guys sat down, I figured it was for Malcolm Smith and the Moses with the commandments. I was trying to figure out. We're bringing the text to the people.
I think a Malcolm Smith AI would have a lot of different takes on bills.
Well, it'd also be a challenge to analyze the true effectiveness of that 2009 to 2010 period with him as leader. What's next? Obviously, you're talking about incorporating different analysis features, but what about bells and whistles that people could utilize? For example, can we get some email alerts? It would be fun to be able to track the bills the way most people do with either New York State Watch or LRS.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, Matt wants that. We'd have to have user accounts, because we're not going to know what you want to be emailed about without user accounts. It's on the roadmap for sure. And we welcome all the input. I hope your listeners will send us ideas too.
A couple things we're playing with. We right now have a daily email. We're looking to design a weekly email that's a little bit more curated and analytic. We're also exploring issue trackers so that you could have, to Josh's point, if we created a user interface, you could basically say, I only want to hear about transportation bills, and you could get notifications or follow transportation bills. We've gotten a bunch of suggestions that are also in the pipeline that are escaping me right now. But basically, we're going to keep playing around with it. Like I said, notes at smithandmoses.com. Send us your ideas.
Even more fun, any name at smithmoses.com will come to us.
Yeah.
You could be like, you guys are super boring on that podcast at smithmoses.com, and we will get that email.
So you may or may not be aware of this, but we here at Dispatches from Planet Albany launched our first ever fantasy league for the 2026 session with lawmakers. And so we're giving points based on bill action. So if you move through a committee, 1 point, you don't get multiple points for multiple committees, because the assembly is just going to rack up points that way. You get multiple points for vote in your house, multiple points if it then moves to the other house, multiple points if it's signed. You lose a point if a bill just languishes, doesn't get a committee vote. You lose more points if the bill gets vetoed. This has been a real challenge for me to score, because I have to go to LRS. I have some trivial Excel awareness to use like XLOOKUP or VLOOKUP now, whichever it is.
VLOOKUP.
Yeah, that's the new one, right?
I think
XLOOKUP's okay.
XLOOKUP's the new one.
We can talk offline.
I haven't done Excel since they invented XLOOKUP. I don't know what that is.
XLOOKUP's the new one. It's great. And so we are able to keep an eye on this monthly, but could you guys ever do something formal like that? You're having drafts, you're doing stuff, and in the interim, could you guys help me with my scoring? I really hate doing this, and I would love to connect with you so that we can have a more rapid update.
You could vibe code that for sure.
Yeah, vibe code?
That's the term for using AI to make software.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you. I am a real Luddite when it comes to all this, and since Zach Williams of Bloomberg left for D.C., I don't even have a person. The way I used to use it, it was the way that like Tom DiNapoli uses email. I would go to Zach and be like, hey, Zach, what's ChatGPT saying these days? And he'd type away things, and kind of like the controller who
in the last 6 months, things have gotten crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Matt's a Luddite too.
I am.
Sorry. And he made his own website for his firm that's like really nice.
Wingspan.nyc.
Yeah, Wingspan.nyc. And he made it. Like you're going to go look and it looks great. The tools to make things on the internet have gotten so good. I mean, 3 years ago, you wouldn't have even believed it. It's just totally crazy. So this idea, there's a path. We should follow up. I'd love to help you on that. I mean, there's definitely a path there for sure.
So I love the idea of empowering me to do this on my own, but now I'm feeling more and more like my mom, who Barb Lombardo, yes,
Barbara.
who, as the managing editor of the Saratogian, had an online editor she would just basically troubleshoot everything regarding like a Facebook post and all this other stuff. And I really just want that person. So ideally, if we could train my content producer to do this, that would even be better than this. And I hope her ears are burning about this expanded set of skills that she's going to acquire.
Knowing how to use AI is critical.
Yes.
I'm sure she would love to. I'm sure she'd love to help you on that.
Anything else we didn't touch on?
No, I think just like we said, please
smithmoses.com.
smithmoses.com. Check it out. Give us feedback. Tell us what we screwed up, as you've helpfully done. And
no, tell us what we can improve.
Sure, and that too. And we'll keep jamming away and try to come up with more fun things for people to use.
Well, Matt and Josh, it is fun. I had fun. I had fun talking about this. I look forward to playing around with this and our future collaborations on our Fantasy Lawmaker League. Thank you both so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Mohrer. Josh Mohrer.